Welcome to Every Child Belongs. I'm Kim Botto, an adoptive mom, grandma, and advocate for kids and teens with disabilities, as well as a longtime leader of kids in student ministries. In this show, we explore how we can create spaces where every child feels heard and valued, whether neurodivergent, differently abled, or they've experienced trauma. Every child belongs. We'll hear from educators, parents, professionals, and more, finding practical ideas that help build a compassionate and supportive world for every child. Let's get started. I'm here with Cortney Jenkins, who's the founder of Awe and Wonder. And Cortney, you've made it your life mission to make sure that every kid does have a space in the church to belong. I so appreciate that. And part of your story, you started out, I didn't realize, I knew that you were a teacher, but you were a middle school teacher
Yes.
in special education. And you founded On Wonder. And what you say On Wonder is it provides adapted Bible curriculum designed specifically for special needs, disability ministry, and home discipleship.
Yes.
And I have used your resources, and they are amazing and they are good. And they're not just helpful for kids with disabilities, they're helpful for all kids to better learn.
Thank you.
So, Cortney, and you're married to a pastor
I am.
and you have two children. So,
Mhm.
tell us more about you. What did I leave out?
Yeah, so my husband and I, we live in North Carolina, where I grew up. He is from Chicago, so he came down to the South with me after we met in college at Liberty University. And the Lord has just taken us on a unique journey of ministry, and it's not always looked the way that we thought that it would look. I didn't plan to go into special education. I planned to be in ministry full time, and instead, he took me on a different path that I didn't really see how that was going to connect all together in the future. But now looking back, I can see that the Lord had those plans already in place. And so I was able to be in the classroom for 6 years. And then I've worked in ministry at my church in different capacities. And now the Lord has opened the door to work full time with All in Wonder.
Which I am so glad because, Courtney, we need you creating resources like you're creating and supporting churches like you do. So let's talk about so you started out as a special ed teacher
Hmm.
and before creating On Wonder. So what experiences in the classroom or just what experiences period led you to bridge that gap between education and ministry?
Yeah. So, like I said, my plan was not to originally go into special education. So I had some experience before stepping into a classroom. I started as a paraprofessional because a ministry position that we had lined up after graduation fell through and we just had to get jobs. And I had some connections in the school system. I applied for a position as a paraprofessional and took that. And then the Lord really just showed me that I enjoyed that work and I really saw the need in the school system to have special education teachers. And so I was asked to go back to school and take a position the following year in a self-contained classroom in a middle school class for moderate to significant disabilities. And so walking into that without having background in it first helped me to see that there are so many people in the church who don't have experience in special education. So I was taking these classes and I was learning as I was doing a lot of times. And so
Mhm.
I saw the value in going from not having a good understanding of what it looks like to support students with disabilities and then learning strategies and being able to implement them right away and see the difference that those make and say, "Hey, like this actually works. Like I'm doing this right now." And so we can learn to use those strategies in the church. And so after, I left the classroom to stay home with my kids. And as I was thinking about, am I going to go back to the classroom once my youngest started to school? I really just saw the need for bridging that gap of there are so many kids with disabilities. The students who were in my classroom, they didn't attend church. I didn't really know of any churches in our area who were doing anything to help reach these families and these kids who needed extra supports. And so I just really felt the Lord leading me to help bridge that gap and help use those special education strategies and teach those to people and provide them in resources that are easy to use that you don't have to know, all of the special ed lingo and you don't have to know all of the strategies on your own, but it's ready for you to be able to use.
How did you come up with the name Awe and Wonder?
So, awe and wonder came from Psalm 65:8, and it says, "The whole earth is filled with awe at your wonders." And we just want to help people to see that everybody, every person, the whole earth can stand in awe of who God is and can know him and can experience his love. And so that's where awe and wonder came from.
Love it. Yeah, I love to get practical. And you talked about how you learned strategies in the classroom that then you could use in ministry. Can you give us just a couple strategies that we maybe even could try this weekend?
Yeah, so one of them that I remember being like life-changing in the classroom was learning about transitions and the use of visual timers.
Mm.
And I had a student who really struggled with wanting the bus to come, wanting to go home. And, we had a 10-15 minute period at the end of the day that was just really difficult for him. And so implementing a visual schedule or a visual timer, it was just on like an old iPod. We had iPods in the
Right.
classroom back then, but it just had, the red mark. It showed how much time was left to be able to go to the bus, and he was, like, totally fine after showing him the visual timer, and I was just like, "I can't believe this actually works." Like, they said that it would work, but it's actually working, and just something simple like that, that it wasn't he wasn't trying to fight me on I am the one telling him that it's time to do this certain thing or it's not time yet for the bus to come, but the timer is telling me when it's going to happen. So even just using something like that at church and helping students to see when they're going to do something else is really helpful.
Yeah, visual timers are so easy and so helpful. Okay, we'll talk about more about some other strategies later, but I wanted one of the things, even though I've met you, we've been together, I didn't realize you had served in middle school, and it made me so excited to think about that and to talk about that today because churches tend to do better, lots of room for improvement, but churches tend to do better
Mhm.
with children who are neurodivergent or disabled.
Yeah.
And then when kids move into middle school, often there's a gap. There isn't
Mhm.
anything for them. So
Yeah.
encourage us, give us ideas. How can we better have something for kids to transition into when they move into middle school if they aren't typical?
Yeah. So I think one thing that's important to remember is that disability ministry is not just children's ministry. Like, we
Right.
have to think about a lifespan when we're talking about disability because many of the people that we are serving and that we want to serve alongside of, we need to be thinking about a lifetime and not just children's ministry. So I think a lot of times children's ministry is where we start seeing the need the most. But it should kind of fuel a desire to see how can we support across the entire lifespan. So I think working with youth ministries, young adult ministries, however it may look, to have some supports in place. You think about what we do in children's ministry. If you have buddy support, if you have a specialized environment, there's lots of different ways that you can support students with different needs. But can you kind of move that along into some other areas of ministry? There is a lot of work that goes into that. There's a lot of training that has to go into that. But I think that if we are doing it with children and we are helping peers understand the needs of different people and they're used to seeing that our church welcomes everybody as the peers grow into youth ministry or young adult ministry, I think that it can be a beautiful thing to support in different age groups. And then there's lots of churches who provide small groups and Bible studies and even like day programs as you get into older age groups because so many services end at 22 for
Hmm.
individuals that are in special education. And so what can the church do to kind of step into the gap there and provide some support during the week even? As they get older.
Yeah, there's amazing things that can be done. And like you said, I mean, look what we're doing in the kids ministry
Mhm.
and just keep doing it.
Yeah.
We have there's a young man that I've known since he was 4. He's now in his early 20s. He still has the same buddy,
Mhm.
and it looks different what they do,
Yeah.
but he's still providing the support so he can be a part of the church community.
Yeah. And two, as a lot of times we have teenagers serve as buddies, older teenagers or young adults serve as buddies. And so, you know, we can have them serve in those environments that they're going to as well. So just different ways to think about it.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So you talk about as we look at your website, which I encourage people to look at your website because you have a whole bunch of freebies so we can get to know you.
Yeah.
But you use visual supports and other tools, to help
Mhm.
kids understand the gospel. Can you give us an example of how you adapt the curriculum or what tools you might use?
Yeah, so for our curriculum, we write adapted books to be able to take scripture. So we're looking at the story straight from scripture and we're thinking about, okay, what vocabulary is really hard to understand? What concepts are going to be difficult? And how can we reword this in a way that's accessible, but is also not gonna water down the truth because we
Mhm.
are passionate about making sure that we are sharing theologically rich resources. And so, you know, you can create kind of an adaptation of a Bible story. So if you're looking at your curriculum and you're going through the story of Jonah, that was what we did at our church this past week. If you're looking at the story of Jonah, you may have a certain way that you're telling that story, but there may be some visuals that you can add in that will help explain certain terms and vocabulary that may be unfamiliar. So, adding in visuals as in like real pictures, adding in visuals as in clip art or AAC symbols that you may
Mhm.
see on like a child's, speaking device, an AAC device. Using those types of symbols can be helpful to help them understand the concepts that you're talking about. So, we do that through our adapted books, and we have repeated storylines that we add in that are like the main idea of what the lesson is about. And we repeat that over and over again within that book that we create, but also throughout the lesson in general. So you can do that as well if you're looking at the story of Jonah, thinking about what can I repeat over and over? What can I simplify? What phrase can I use and use that all throughout the lesson? And what visuals can I use to help support that idea?
Yeah, and I'll say if sometimes I work with churches, they say, "Well, there's not one big idea that I can repeat." I'm like, "Well, then go back to the drawing board because we need to be able to have
Yeah.
one main idea that we're trying to teach."
Right. And sometimes it's hard to figure out what is the main idea, but I think that it really helps us as teachers if we
Yes.
are thinking through what are we really wanting any student to walk away from this lesson understanding about God, understanding about how we interact with God, and being able to simplify that down is really important.
Absolutely. So I know that you've worked with a lot of churches, you've talked to a lot of people in the church. What is something that a well-intentioned person in church might say to you that actually makes you cringe a little? And what truth would you like to replace that comment with?
One thing that I hear a lot is that we have this one child who is causing a disruption. They're focused a lot on all of the negative things that this child is bringing into a classroom
Mhm.
instead of thinking about it as an opportunity for discipleship. And they seem to be sometimes more concerned about all the other students in the classroom and how this one student is impacting the others. And of course, we have to think about all the students that we're serving, not saying that, but I hope that we can reframe the challenges into opportunities, to be able to see it as a challenge, but one that is going to give us an opportunity to disciple someone in a unique way. And
Mhm.
just thinking through it more so in I want to see this child know who God is. I want them to experience the love of God. I want them to love coming to church. And let's think creatively about how we can help do that.
Yes. Courtney, you brought up that often leaders are concerned that one child will ruin the experience. I've heard that. Ruin the experience for all the other kids.
Hmm.
Give us some encouragement on that.
Yeah. I just think that it is so important to remember that all people deserve to have access to the gospel. All people are created in the image of God. I think that we know that, but a lot of times we don't live that out in our ministries. And we just see these challenges as a challenge and not as an opportunity to discipleship. And so I would just encourage you to use it as an opportunity to think creatively and to think about what can I do to make this experience good for everyone, including this child who is struggling, and think about how can I change what I'm doing? How can I change what the environment is like to help better support them and not necessarily expecting a behavior change without providing some supports.
I totally agree. And I think often the kids in the room are much less distracted than the adults in the room.
Mhm.
If you're loving today's conversation and want to dive even deeper into creating spaces where every child belongs, check out my book, Boundless Hope. It's packed with practical tools, real stories, and powerful insights to help you make a difference. Get yours today. Just head to kimbotto.com or Amazon to order now. Cortney, if a church is starting over and they're building a new kids ministry, maybe it's a brand new church. If you were to build a kids ministry from scratch, and let's talk about student ministry too,
Mhm.
what would you do differently?
Yeah, so I would automatically include some type of space that's a sensory space that is designed for having a calm area. There's so much that you can do there. There's so many resources that you can find to help you think through how to build that space. But having that there, having universal changing table in a bathroom would also be something that I would absolutely think about. And having a space that's big enough for a wheelchair, having an adult sized changing table so that if you have students who are older, they can still be served by their families or by volunteers that are approved to be able to support in that way. But those are two right off the top of my head that I would absolutely include in a new space.
When you say universal changing table, are you talking about what you just said, a changing table that can be used by all sizes and ages of people?
Yep, yep. So there are ones that are specifically designed for that, that fold up kind of like those koala care ones that you might
Right.
see in a bathroom, but they're, much larger and can support a lot more weight. Or a lot of churches use like a therapy table, like a almost like a massage therapy table
Mhm.
that can be used for that as well. So there's a lot of different ways that you could do that, but just having a space that's big enough in a bathroom to be able to include that, get a wheelchair in, have wheelchair rails and everything at the toilet and all of that kind of stuff is important to think about. If you're looking to support individuals with disabilities, you want to make sure that they can use the facilities that you have. So just some
Mhm.
important things to think about there.
Yes, and there's a list. ADA has a list of how you can be compliant, and that's a great list to start too, and those ideas that you gave us are really great too. I think sometimes we can learn from what people are doing really well. We can also learn from things that didn't go very well. So, do you have a story that shows how the church really stepped up and cared? And also a story of maybe how a family was hurt based on the response
Mhm.
of the church?
I can think about a story that someone shared with me that they were really beginning their disability ministry and they were starting with an adult ministry and they wanted the church to really be involved and it not just to be its own separate thing, but for the church to see them as valuable parts of the community. And so they were posting like in the bulletin about what the class was learning and the Bible verse that they were doing, and so the church like started playing the songs that they were learning in their class and like
Oh,
doing that in the whole, you know, regular congregation and um
great.
volunteer or just people in the church started asking them about their Bible verse and the Bible stories and just it opened up so many doors of conversations and relationship building, and I just love that. It was so simple of just let's share about what we're doing and make people aware of what our class is doing, just like another Sunday school class might be doing, but we're going to share so that you can be a part of these people's lives. And they really took that and um, did something really cool with it.
So they were in a separate classroom,
They were.
but yet they engaged with the church in other areas.
Yeah,
What,
so it
during
was like a
worship
Sunday
service?
school,
Okay.
but they would go to, like, to the regular worship service with
Okay.
the regular service.
Okay. On the other hand, a story where maybe we can learn where it didn't go right.
Yeah, so I can think about an example even in our own church. So not telling on other people, but
Mhm.
sharing just an example where even if you know a lot of things, like things can still go wrong. We had a little girl who she had some pretty high support needs, and we had a buddy who wasn't really fully trained to meet those support needs, who was supporting her and had allowed her to kind of do some things that the parents didn't feel were safe. And so the parent came to pick up and saw something that the child was doing, and they just really were uncomfortable with it and approached our disability ministry leader and was like, hey, we're going to have to take a break because this just isn't okay. And so of course that was something that we immediately wanted to have conversations about. We wanted to correct and wanted to make sure that they knew that they were always welcome to come back. And they haven't come back, but we're still in communication with them, and we're still sending them lessons, and we're still sending them things to do at home and letting them know, "Hey, like, we're sorry, one, that that happened.
Mhm.
We won't let that happen again. We can be more careful about which individual people are serving with your child because they do have higher support needs." And then letting them know, like, we're still gonna be here for you. Even if you don't come on Sunday mornings, like, their family is still coming to services, but they switch off on who stays home with their child. So we wanna continue that relationship with them. So even when we make a mistake, we can, still try and keep that relationship going.
I love that. They don't have to be in the church building for you continue to be in relationship with them and continue to reach out for them. Courtney, if you're looking 5 years from now, what is your dream for the church, especially as it relates to individuals with disabilities?
Yeah. My dream would be that it would not be uncommon for churches to be welcoming and creating space for people with disabilities. That right now I feel like we're surprised sometimes when we see a church who's doing it
Mhm.
and who is, having people on staff, having a staff person specifically supporting individuals with disabilities is not very common right now. But I think that the awareness is growing. I was really encouraged. We were both at Kids Matter conference a few
Mhm.
weeks ago, and I was very encouraged by a lot of the conversations that I had of people were seeing the need and they're wanting to do something about it. They're just kind of like, I don't know what yet, but we know that we need to do something and we're willing to work to do something. So I see in the next 5 years that many, many churches are going to have the supports in place, whether that is with a buddy ministry and children's ministry, whether that's a specialized environment, sensory rooms, all of those kind of things. That they're looking at the needs, they're seeing the opportunity to reach people with the gospel and being willing to just do what they need to do to reach those people.
Yes, that's my hope and dream too. And you brought up a sensory room or space. I talk to a lot of people who say, I don't have room for that. Talk to us about how we can still be a welcoming and safe place for people
Yeah.
of all different kinds of abilities without a dedicated space. Give us some ideas on how we can do that.
Yeah, so having like a calm corner in the room that you're already in, having a space that is just kind of blocked off, whether it be through like some bookshelves that are kind of making a little nook, or if you have like a calm tent or different things that can kind of make just a little respite area to where if things are too overwhelming in the room, you're creating a space where it's good for them to be able to go and self-regulate. Having buddy bags. I don't know if you guys have talked about that on the podcast before, but having buddy bags that you have visual supports, where you have fidgets, where you have those visual timers, having things that they really love playing with. If you have a kid who has a special interest in Spider-Man, like having some Spider-Man toys within that bag and being able to use that to help tell the Bible story or help get
Hmm.
them from one space to another. Just thinking intentionally about what can we bring into the environment that we already have. Maybe you have a cart that you roll in and you have some resources that you already have prepared there and you can pull it into the space that you already have. Um, being willing to make some changes in volume or in what lights are
Yes.
turned on. Um, we have this idea of what a large group experience is like in kids ministry, but if you don't have space for someone to move out of, if that's too overwhelming, having the heart to say, because I value all people having access to the gospel, I'm willing to change a little bit about the environment to help make it more accessible for everyone.
And it can be just as simple as turning the volume down a few notches.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be that difficult. Courtney, as you do this work and talk to so many people, what is bringing you joy as you look at the landscape, and what is breaking your heart?
I would say what's bringing me joy is seeing so many people begin serving people with disabilities and seeing that it's not as hard as I thought it was going to be, and that it brings so much joy into their lives. And seeing them share stories of, like, I got to share the gospel with this child, or we had this student who was baptized and we didn't know that they could even understand the gospel. But having ways that they can communicate that has been just amazing for them. And so getting to hear those
Mhm.
stories has brought so much joy to me, and it helps fuel the work that I do because it makes me want to keep going whenever we hear stories of the impact that it's making. What breaks my heart is hearing the stories of families who are turned away from churches. Every time I hear a story that, their child just had too many problem behaviors, or they just say, "We're just not equipped. We're just not equipped to serve your child." And I get it. Like, I've been in ministry. I have served in children's ministry and felt overwhelmed and like, is this Sunday ever gonna end? Like, let's just be real.
Right.
There are times where you're like, "I don't know how I'm gonna make it through the next hour." But it breaks my heart when I hear stories of families who are really turned away from Jesus because they have experienced hurt from within the church. And so even if you're not equipped, like, let's find ways that we can be equipped, that we can love on families, and show them that they're important, that they're valuable, and that they're welcome.
Breaks my heart too. I agree with you. And and I think that there are many times when churches turn a child away where actually with just a few little simple steps there on the spot, they could take that child in.
Mhm.
They could have a great experience, and so could everybody else. What are some situations if a church just feels like, I don't know what to do? What would you say to them?
There are some times where you have a child who is physically violent, who you're just like, I don't know what to do. Like, my volunteers aren't safe. My other kids in the classroom aren't safe. I don't know what to do in that situation. And it's very case by case, but involves a lot of open communication. You're not going to surprise a parent who has this child at home all the time, who talks to their teachers all the time. Like, just let them know, like, let them know, one, that you love them, that you love their child, that you want them to be there, and that you're struggling, and that you wanna work together as a team to figure out a solution. And I think when we approach it as a team mindset, it really helps. And so some of the things that I've heard that have worked before are, talking about, does your child have a therapist that, a physical therapist or an occupational therapist, or an ABA therapist who we could pay to come in and observe during our church environment, and give us tips for what we can do in kids ministry or whatever the environment may be that could support them better. Being able to offer to pay someone to go and watch the child at home and do something with the child at home so that the parents can still come to church. There's just a lot of ways that we can think outside of the box where, yeah, there are
Mhm.
certain times where there's a situation where it's unsafe and we have to take measures to keep everyone safe, but we have to do so in love, and we have to do it
Yes.
where they still know that we love them and that God loves them and that they're a part of the church.
Yes, absolutely. Courtney, I could sit here and talk to you forever. As we wrap up, we like to end with just some rapid fire questions.
All right.
So, you work in kids ministry, you're going to be great at this. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Those of us who work in disability ministry, we love sensory tools. What is a sensory tool that you cannot live without?
So we have one that is a little maze that has liquid in it, and you squeeze it
Ooh.
and the liquid goes through the different parts of the little plastic maze, and I just love it. I will sit there forever and hold it. And there's another one that's called an infinity ring. You can put it on your hand. It's a metal ring, and then it
Mm-hmm.
opens up and it'll slide up and down your arm. And it just, you can even go from like one hand to the other. It's great.
Oh, send me those links. I need
Yes.
those too. I think I love them. On the weekend in kids ministry, what phrase do you find yourself saying over and over again?
um, Clean up. A lot of times we have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of we share space with a daycare, and
Uh-huh.
that always presents a challenge because we're trying to get something done, and so we have to have times of cleaning up multiple times throughout our time in kids ministry to be able to focus on what we're doing.
That's right. When you have fun, then you have to clean up. That's just part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, Courtney, you're on a long drive. What's on your playlist?
So I actually listen to podcasts more than I listen to music. I just don't typically listen to music, but I love Sally Clarkson. I don't know if you know who she is, but she is
Yes.
a
Yes.
mentor to a lot of women through her podcast, At Home with Sally. And she's just encouraged me so much in my motherhood and just life. And so her, and then the Lazy Genius podcast is
Oh, I've not heard
amazing
of that.
for time management and just thinking about all the things that have to be done and how to get them all done. So I love those too.
I'm gonna check that out.
Yes, it's great.
If you could only eat one food, what would it be?
I would say probably pasta because I love it oh so much, and I could eat it a million different ways.
Mhm. Pasta's good. Okay, finish this thought. Every child,
Deserves access to the gospel.
yes, preach, sister. Yes. Courtney, as people listen to this and they go, "Oh, I want to be friends with her. I want to get to know her. I want her stuff." What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, you can find us at specialneedsministryresources.com. It's a long URL, but you can find us there. And then on Instagram is where I usually hang out online. And you can find us at all AWE 2 underscores, the word and 2 underscores and wonder.
And you're also giving us access to a free handout about how we can adapt curriculum.
Yes.
And so we will put that on the episode page. So thank you for that. And Courtney, I just want to say, because we met from being at the same conferences. I always love coming to your space at the conference. I was looking last night at my pictures. I have a picture because you had a tent, you had sand that we could play with. You called it a sensory bag,
Hmm.
which is like a buddy bag with just things to help calm. And it's just a calming space. So when I'm feeling a little dysregulated at a conference, I look for your booth, and I just go sit in your
Yeah,
tent. So
I
thank you for
love it.
providing that space for me.
Absolutely.
But thank you so much for the work that you're doing, Courtney. I so appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today on Every Child Belongs. If you found today's episode helpful, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. And don't forget to share this with a friend who might need to hear it. Together, we can create a world where every child belongs.